You know, Tom Vassell has a lot of hats, but I gotta wonder, does he have one of these? Totally safe. Hey, no throwing meeples over there. Hey there folks, I am Jeff, your tabletop technician. No. Today I am going full out carpenter on the Dice Tower because I'm telling you about Rolling Heights by John D. Clare and AEG. Now this is a recent entry in the popular city building genre of games, going up along such titles as Suburbia and Cities Skylines. Now, unless you've been living under a steel girder recently, you may know that the shtick of this game is that you are rolling meeples into a small tray, and then taking actions based on how those meeples land, either working hard, working steady, or exhausted. But that meeple rolling mechanic is just an entry point into this game, which employs a unique blend of luck and tactical expansion across the map. So let me kick this off by showing you how to play. First off, you'll have to assemble the play area, which consists of 13 different boards and tiles, before stocking the level 1 and level 2 markets along each side. Players start off with 2 civil laborers, they provide concrete, and 2 carpenters, which provide wood. I'm going to fast forward for just a moment to a later stage in the game when players will typically have a wider variety of workers, so that I can teach this meeple rolling mechanic, because frankly, it is one of the more challenging aspects of the game to teach. Let's say that you have a workforce of 8 different meeples. Now you can roll all of them at the start of your turn, because while you can employ an unlimited number of workers throughout the game, you can only roll 10 of them on each of your turns. So the first thing you'll do is roll these meeples into your tray, and then extract any of them that are standing on their feet, working hard, or laying on their side, working steady. You can then re-roll any of the workers who were exhausted or lying flat on their backs, and you can repeat this process as many times as necessary until half of the meeples you started off with, rounded up, are working in some capacity. That part of your turn is known as the prep phase, but now you go into the risk phase, where you can push your luck to try and get more work out of your workforce. To do this, you'll continue to roll your exhausted meeples and extracting working meeples as you already have been. However, if one of your re-rolls results in no new working meeples, then your active workforce goes on strike, and you must forfeit half of your working meeples rounded down. So if I had rolled again and gotten 1 more working laborer, then rolled again and gotten no more workers, I'd have to choose 2 of the 5 workers I already had to go on strike. This roll until half, then roll until bust to remove a different half can be a bit confusing, especially to new players, and getting it wrong can have a significant impact on the pacing of the game, so I wanted to make sure that I made it clear. Now the good news is if you do end up with a strike on your hands, you do get a wild token, which I'll cover in a little bit. The other good news is that you can resolve the prep and risk phases in between your turns, so that when it is your turn again, you can immediately start taking actions. And those actions include triggering the effects of a worker, buying a new blueprint and placing it on the main board, and adding construction materials to an existing blueprint. There are a variety of different workers in Rolling Heights, but 4 of them specifically provide you with construction materials: wood, concrete, steel, and glass. These workers simply give you 1 of their resource type if working steady, or 2 if working hard. Now I'll mention here at this point that any unused construction materials get lost at the end of your turn, but luckily there are a multitude of uses for these resources. First, you can of course add them to any unfinished blueprint, which I'll cover in a moment. You can also trade resources using 2 of any type to get 1 resource of concrete or wood or glass, or 3 of any resource to get 1 of steel. You also use these resources to purchase new blueprints. The cost of a blueprint is shown above each tile on the track, and new blueprints are added at the expensive end of each track and get cheaper as they slide to the other end. The 2 cheapest blueprints on each track are given a wild token if a more expensive blueprint is purchased from that track instead. You must place a blueprint on the board at the same time that you purchase it, and that placement could incur additional costs. Some spaces will cost additional cubes to place a blueprint on it, but in addition, if you place a blueprint on a tile that is not orthogonally adjacent to a tile you already control, you must spend an additional resource for each space between the tile you place and the nearest blueprint you control. Some spaces on the board award points for placing a tile there, though it will require a specific type of tile like a park or an industry. You can use any construction material to pay these costs, or you can also use one of these wild tokens. You can also use the executive, who provides currency specifically used for construction. This worker is a little confusing since it provides a resource for which there is no physical component in the game, and that resource can only be used when buying and placing blueprints. Let me go ahead and cover some of the other workers in the game. The politician can give you 1 or 2 points, which, if you think about it, makes sense. They don't really do that much, but they can help you win. The city planner has 2 entirely different actions depending on their working status. If working steady, they give you 1 free reroll of any exhausted workers from this turn, and you can't bust if they all still end up exhausted. If working hard, it lets you purchase an additional blueprint from the market for free, but you still have to pay the placement costs on the main board. The public servant can be used to increment the working status of another non-public servant worker who was one of the workers you rolled in this current turn, meaning you can improve another worker from working steady to working hard. Not surprisingly, there's a lot of fine print to this particular worker. The last worker is the purple public figure, but before I get to him, I'm going to talk about what happens when you finish building a blueprint. Each blueprint in Rolling Heights shows a specific arrangement of blocks which must be placed on the tile, so this will eventually look like this. A completed blueprint will provide various rewards. Sometimes these are just points, sometimes they're extra workers, sometimes they're points based on the current board state when completed. Other buildings, however, have a special bonus that can be triggered by these public figures depending on their working status. If these buildings are completed, you can trigger their effects once per turn with one of these public figures. Now, a game of Rolling Heights ends when, well, it's complicated, but basically you go until the last block of any one construction material has been placed in a building on the main board. Finish that round, then play one more round. Now, back at the beginning of the game, 3 add tiles were randomly chosen and placed on the main board. These act as public objectives, and all players will score these at the end of the game. In addition, players will get 2 different target tiles at the beginning of the game, which they get to score 1 of at game end. Lastly, some buildings will also provide their owners additional endgame scoring. So I'm going to go ahead and share some of my thoughts on Rolling Heights. First of all, this game is long, very long, much longer in fact than the 60 minutes suggested here on the box. Even when the legend himself, Mike DeLisio, played this recently during an Extra Life charity event, their game lasted 2 hours. And they were even given a world-class teach of the game. Obviously, the length of a game is a concern for some players more than others, but the gameplay here is fairly repetitive. There isn't a lot of build-up throughout the game, except for maybe just having more workers, potentially, from one turn to the next. And that kind of takes me to my next point. The luck here is, well, fairly lucky. You can go round after round after round of lousy rolls and just feel like you're doing nothing in the game, while someone else at the table inevitably seems to end up with a staff of motivated tryhards. I will say that Rolling Heights does a pretty good job at mitigating luck. First of all, those wild tokens you can get from a strike or from the market can come in pretty handy, and if you don't use them, they're worth 1 point at a minimum at the end of the game. Secondly, there are some limitations to keep a lucky player from running away with the score, such as only being able to build 1 blueprint on each turn, and as I mentioned in the teach, losing all unused construction materials at the end of each turn. These can pump the brakes on the progress of a very lucky player, but even with these arrestor cables in place, I've still seen some pretty wild swings in score. I've won a game with a 40-point lead over another player, almost a full lap around this track. And then that aforementioned charity game with Mike DeLisio, he won by 51 points. And in front of the children, Mike. The thing is, if the luck isn't going your way, you can tend to over-focus on a particular aspect of the game. You kind of tunnel vision in on that one thing you can't get done, and as a result, you tend to lose focus on other aspects of the game, like maybe these ad tokens or your personal target tiles. The thing is, you might not really be that far behind everyone else, but a few bad rounds in a row can make you feel like you're worse off than you really are, and cause you to make some simple yet costly mistakes. As Rolling Height progresses, the board certainly becomes a magnificent sight to see. But it can also become something of a dexterity game as you try to finish off this park between these skyscrapers. I've already seen at least one post on BGG where someone quickly replaced these blocks with actual Legos, and I'm not really sure why AEG didn't go with a more snugly fitting component for these cubes, because frankly, they're more frustrating than they need to be. And speaking of frustrating, my last gripe here is with the setup. I did briefly mention the 13 boards that you assemble into the main play area. Now the 6 city tiles are reversible to handle different player counts, so I understand that. This main panel, however, mostly serves as a player aid, which is woefully insufficient. I would have much preferred dedicated player aids, shrinking this panel down to its bare essentials. That would let you shrink down these market tiles, which should have been trifold boards, making it easier to slide tiles down when replaced on the market. You also have to remove a number of construction materials based on a number of players, and so taking all this into account, setting up Rolling Heights takes quite a bit of effort before spending the next 2 hours playing a fairly repetitive, relatively lightweight game. This makes a final verdict on Rolling Heights particularly difficult to nail down. The thing is, this game is fun, and I quite enjoy playing it. Assuming your luck isn't absolutely terrible, you've got plenty of decision space here to work within. The final board state can often be awe-inspiring, and the somewhat point-salad nature of this game can keep things dynamic and interesting from play to play. Of course, it can be a bit frustrating if you're not the player who's 40 points ahead of everyone else, especially if you're not entirely sure why. And regardless of which end of the scoreboard you're on, 2 hours for a game like this can feel a bit absurd. Hey, and on that note, it's time for me to punch out. Cheers. They're more frustrating than they need to be. Yes! Did it! 5th take, I don't have to build this stupid thing anymore!